speaking of your sunburn, this was one of the first things I thought when I heard about TST. It was obviously a really we've seen the basketball tournament, and this is obviously related. It's to that, but the fact that it was played in North Carolina in June.
Yes.
It's not, and then some of these games were like, peak sun times when it's like at 2-3 p.m. I've played games in like 85, 90 degree weather. It's pretty challenging. What was just the, even for the fans, it's very, very hot. How was just the general feeling, especially during those day games?
I mean, luckily it wasn't like in the 90s, but and the tournament organizers very smartly took a break between I want to say there were no games between like 3:30 or 4 and 7. So that was, I think, obviously calculated. Yeah. Not a lot of shade at that facility, especially not on the 4 fields that were completely and totally unshaded, but it went off well, man. I mean, it was nice. It was like the 70s and cloudy yesterday, which was a nice change of pace. But this body's not built for heat. So,
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the tournament itself. If anyone's not aware, TST, a 7v7 tournament where it was $1 million on the line, and it was interesting because I obviously us being in the soccer bubble, we can't go a day without thinking or talking about this sport, but there were a lot of people I saw online that were like, I didn't even know this was happening, but I was very much waiting for it. But the sort of general, you were tweeting a lot about it, about how awesome it was. Can you go into any more detail? What made it so damn cool?
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like the concept, first of all, they like to say they 7v7 exists, and other parts of the world, you have like Hong Kong Sevens, which is a little bit different, but this is really pretty much a brand new sport. It's played for the uninitiated here. It's played on a condensed field. I want to say it's 60 by 40, 60 long, 40 wide.
So Yankee Stadium Museum?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Right. Exactly. City Field, Yankee Stadium dimensions. The goals are a little smaller. They're shorter, like they're squatter, and they're a little bit narrower. And there's all kinds of oddball rules. It's 7-a-side. But the strangest one, and the one that came off to greatest effect, was they play 2 20-minute halves. At the end of the game, no matter what the score is, it becomes next goal. It becomes, like the target score is 1 goal additional to what the leading team has. So if the game ends 4-1, it becomes a game to 5, and it's like you think, so basically the team that's down 4-1 could score 4 goals in a row and win the game.
Right.
And you wouldn't think it happened very much, but it happened like repeatedly. It happened this weekend. 3-4 times there were teams that blew 3-goal leads in what's called target score time. And the other wrinkle about that is every 5 minutes of target score time, they pull a player off the field from each team. And again, you'd think it's like, it's never going to get below like 6v6 or 5v5. Dude, one of the games went 2-on-2, right? which is ridiculous. And I actually witnessed the tournament organizers had not thought about what they would do if it got to 1v1. The problem
goalie versus goalie or something
is you can't kick or throw the ball into yourself, right? So it would have just like entered into some endless feedback loop where the game was. So basically, they decided on the fly was if it goes 2v2, it stays 2v2, and if one team gets a red card, it would go 3v2. They would add a player, so as you said. Yeah, it was dope, man. I was extremely entertained for multiple days in a row.
Yeah, so and it's obviously different watching it on television versus being on the ground there, because even while I was watching, the mics picked up. There was some trash talk. There was a couple things I heard, that you don't necessarily you expect to hear it in a Sunday league game, but there's usually not $1 million on the line when my local beer league has some games going on.
Yeah.
But this was this captured something, and I saw that you there were a couple of things. You got the game winning ball.
Hold on a second.
Oh, let's see it.
You got it right here.
All right. The game-winning ball. TST ball for what is it? A Mitre?
It's Ultimax. It's a nice ball. It's a $130 ball.
Okay.
And they did a deal with Mitre where they, or like Maurer, as us white people say, where they got I think 300 of these from them, sponsorship thing, and then the last day they were just chucking these into the fucking stands. Excuse me. It was clearly they're not going to reuse them, but I was just like, this is like a good. But you know what I mean? Like, this would never happen in an MLS game. They'd be chucking out the replicas, but this is the real deal. I got one for myself, too. More importantly, yesterday, after everybody left, Felipe and I wandered over to the sort of accommodations for athletes, which I would describe as it's like marginally nicer Fire Festival. And it was just
stuff
strewn everywhere. Like, teams just left stuff there, right? I mean, like this right here is a Steven Lenhart Sneaky Fox FC jersey.
Yeah.
And I didn't just get one. I got the home and the away kit here. Steven or Mike McGee, if you guys want your gear back, Venmo me. So yeah, we got
some classics. I mean, they're obviously legendary players in Major League Soccer. I saw obviously Jimmy Conrad has Conrad and Beasley United, and they ended up losing to Sneaky Fox. It was just that was one of the big games of players who've both been on our show. Mike McGee, who is the owner of Sneaky Fox Vodka, right? Is that what it is? Vodka? Mm-hmm. And obviously Jimmy Conrad, who's a friend. So it was a very difficult matchup for me because, obviously care about both of them deeply, and you don't know. It's like rooting for your kids who are playing against each other, okay?
Yeah, I mean, it was well, they're on my ring light. So it was I look marginally more sunburned now. So there was a lot of there obviously was a ton of dudes. There was Dempsey had a team. Donovan was supposed to show up but didn't. Sneaky Fox obviously had a team. They had they had a bunch of dudes who didn't play because they got injured, like Demiret and Alan Gordon. But they had guys like Lenhart. D-Row was on Jimmy's team. Jermaine Jones.
D-Row was balling, bro.
Bro, yeah.
D-Row was great.
It's class, It's like that never goes away. You know what I mean? Like, Felipe and I saw him. Felipe Cardenas, my colleague who covered it with me, saw D-Row on the first day after the training session, just barefoot, shirtless, just walks up to a ball in the field as he's leaving it and just hammers like a 20-yard shot upper 90 into this tiny goal with no shoes on, like it's nothing, So yeah, man, it was really good. We were also like the only writers there. Kyle Bonagora, a great dude, was there from ESPN, but wasn't covered very thoroughly this year. Suspect that might change going forward, but who knows?
Yeah, and then the winning team was a Newtown Pride or something. Newtown Pride ended up winning in a spectacular fashion. But I wonder, I don't know if you spoke to anybody from the team, or anything, because I saw they put out a long Twitter thread, and obviously. Newtown was obviously the town that suffered the Sandy Hook shooting, and they really did highlight that changed a lot of their lives, just experiencing that in their community. But I don't know if you spoke to anybody just on what it sort of meant for them to win that tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't touch a ton on the Sandy Hook stuff. I know it's funny because a lot of these teams, I mean, they're from Newtown, but I mean, 2/3 of the team are like ringers, right? They'd be like guys from the Major Arena Soccer League or futsal guys from Brazil. I mean, every team was like this. They obviously have a few local dudes, but they want to stack it with talent. But I mean, to me, the crazier takeaway was I think their winning share, Felipe and I wrote it in a story the other day, it's going to end up being like 20 G's a player, which, I was talking to somebody yesterday and they said something like, man, that's crazy because you think $1 million, but that's not life-changing money. And I was like, dude, 20 G's, you pay, a lot of people pay off all their debt with that. Or this MSL player who might make that in a year, you know what I mean? It's crazy money. I do think one of the guys though, who we talked to, Felipe, was like, what are you going to do with the money? And the guy just went straight to Miami. That's what he said. So I think some players maybe it was life changing, and how many women of the night they were going to get that weekend or something. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. They're like, Vegas exists. So
yeah, exactly. Just go ahead and have the greatest weekend of my entire life.
The other thing that was obviously, I think, marred the competition a little bit, especially on the first day, was I don't remember the initial team, but I know it was targeted or there was some sort of racial abuse targeted at a West Ham United.
Dallas United was the other team.
Okay.
Club team from Dallas. Yeah.
Right, and obviously I think it was handled well and swiftly, where the team was removed from the competition. But it definitely was not the way they clearly wanted to start off this tournament.
I mean, dude, like, we know this issue is inescapable, right? But I mean, when I say that, it didn't even cross my mind that this could happen. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not. Here, man. Yeah, and so like, I was standing there with Felipe, or we were just sitting in the stands at some point, and, play stopped, and it just stopped for like 10, 15 minutes. And it dawned on me, because, last time that happened, we're just like, what's going on? Teams are talking to the ref. And it dawned on me, I was covering the DC United game where Taxi Funtas, was alleged to have said something to an Inter Miami player. And it was the same thing where after 8 or 9 minutes of coaches talking to each other, you're like, oh my God, I understand what's happening here. And I had that thought for like half a second, but I was just like, no, come on. Like at TST on the first day of TST, we can't make it one day at a fake ass tournament without a race riot or something like that. It's just ridiculous. Like, but no, I mean, props the organizers, man. You heard, Anton Ferdinand, West Ham, the next day was just like, they could not have responded to this better. They nipped it in the bud. They sent I think he actually said something like, some of the major leagues in Europe could sort of like take some lessons from how this was handled here. Obviously, totally different setup, but I was relieved, even as a journalist, that it was dealt with that way, so that I could report that, and that we could move on with the tournament in some way and sort of focus on it as a whole without that being the central storyline. It's like the reason it didn't end up being the central storyline isn't because it was forgotten or something. It's because the punishment was immediate and severe, and that's that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, yeah. It worked. You're out of the tournament.
Right. Like, and you would think Spain would do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Start docking points.